Okay, looks like we're good. So welcome, I'm Emily, and I'll be your Stat 240 guide, I guess. Oh, and someone got me to do the live transcript, which I thought was pretty cool. It's a little bit distracting, but kind of cool anyways. How do I just enable, I guess? Oh, there we go. It already knows what I'm saying. It's crazy. All right. So welcome. Stat 240 means that you've done Stat 230, probably. Hopefully. Here we go. Yes. I guess so. Yeah, it's going to be kind of confusing for me because I'm teaching Stat 230 as well as Stat 240. So I'm going to have to keep them straight. So, but that's my problem, not yours. Welcome to, I guess we're calling it Applied Statistics. Oh, and I don't have a lot of stickers, but I feel like a welcome star. It's kind of fun. Okay, so today is not going to be bad at all. I do want to talk about the textbook, but before we do that, let's do some easier stuff. For example, how do you contact me? Well, like I said, my name is Emily Lee. So many E's. It's crazy. But it's easy to remember, I guess. What I have wanted to show you was that I just updated the Moodle page. Okay. So today we're just going to talk about, what to expect from the course and what I expect to view and what you need to do to earn a grade. And also make sure that you're all set up with R and R Studio. I think you have used it in the past, but can let me know in the chat if you have or you haven't. R and R Studio. So, because until I know that, I won't know where to start. I can start from the very beginning. You have, good. Do you guys all know each other? Have not. Okay, that's okay. Because I know sometimes, even though Stat 230 is a prereq, sometimes they teach R and sometimes they don't, because they don't have to. So that's totally fine. So I'm actually assuming that you have not. And if you have, then you'll be able to help your peers. So that's good. Okay. So I'm going to assume that you haven't, since I've got at least one person who's not, which is kind of what I was thinking. Okay, so first thing I want to do is just walk you through the Moodle page, show you what's there, what's not. It's kind of a work in progress still. So what happened is, you might know Claude, he was teaching it before, and he kind of handed it over to me, and so I'm still kind of getting situated, but at the same time, they decided to change some things last minute, and so I'm still kind of, I guess, learning the ropes. So there are a couple of things that I need to iron out, but we'll work through it together, and it's going to be fine. Okay, so on our Moodle page. I posted kind of the most important contact information, so my name, my email. I also give you my cell phone number, and I'll put that in the notes as well. And just as a note on the notes. So my email is elee@okanagan.bc.ca, and my cell phone is 250-864-8386. So these notes that I'm writing here, those at the end of class, I make them into a PDF and then I post them on our Moodle page, right? So you'll have the video, right, on YouTube, and then you'll have the notes. So even if you have to miss class or if it just doesn't work with your schedule, then you'll always have the resources available, right? So just so you know, these notes that I write here, those will be posted, okay, here on Moodle. So I give out my cell phone number. The reason I do that is because, and I know people think I'm crazy. It's really beneficial to me, because what happens is you'll probably be working on some problem, and typically you're working on a problem, you got paper and you've written stuff, and you're working through it and you just can't figure it out, right? And so the easiest way that I find to ask a question is if you just take a picture of it and text me the picture, and that way it's a lot quicker, I find, to answer questions. If you don't want to text me, that's totally fine. You can email me. They go to the same place. They go to my phone. So it doesn't really matter to me. I just find that texting is a lot quicker. And usually what happens is I'll, make a comment, or I'll jot down how I would solve it maybe, or just something to help you along. It depends on the question, and then send you a picture back, right? And then we can just kind of send pictures back and forth. And because it doesn't have to be an email, I find that emails are often very formal, right? Where you feel like you have to say, oh, hi, Emily, how are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't really get you to ask the question right away. So whereas texting, you can just kind of be like, hey, I'm working on this problem. Can you help me out? And that works really well. So I will say, so a lot of the time people are kind of, oh, it's too late to text her. It's okay. I'll wait until the morning. I would prefer it if you just sent me your question right away, because if you're working on a problem and you just kind of get it out there, even so, usually what happens is if it's really late at night, then I've gone to bed, right? But you guys are students, so you're working, right? And so I'll have this series of texts in the morning that I wake up to, and it's like, hey, I'm working on this problem. I can't figure it out. And then like a few minutes later, it'll be like, oh, I figured it out actually. So don't worry about it. Usually just putting it out there helps. It's weird, but it works. And so don't hesitate to contact me if you're working on something, it's just not working out. But I always say, I'm an adult. I can decide when it's appropriate to text back and when it's not. So you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so for that reason, I have office hours just by appointment, just because I am available pretty much all the time. So if you do feel like we need to have like a Zoom meeting about something, then that's totally fine. Just let me know. And this room is kind of like my room. And so this is where I have all my lectures. And if you want to meet in this room, it's just my room. And so we could just meet in here. That's fine. But just let me know. And I'm usually available. If I'm not, then I'll let you know. But yeah. All right. So I think I said it already, but who knows? So I will always use this room. So just have it saved somewhere and you'll be good to go. I posted a link to the lecture videos on YouTube. Of course, there are none there yet because we haven't had a class yet, but I'll take you there anyways. So there's nothing here. But of course, after class, there will be one little video there. It takes a little bit of time for it to process. And so it's kind of an ordeal. Zoom has to process it, and then I have to download it, and then I have to upload it to YouTube, and then YouTube has to process it. And I'm sure there's a quicker way, but this is working out fine. So this is our playlist, but I've actually been posting my lecture videos for a long time. So if you want to check those out, I've got kind of all my classes now. And if you check out the playlists, there's a Stat Labs playlist. It's pretty old, but I've referenced the first video for it for later today. So it'll be here if you wanted to find it that way, or I've posted the link. So yeah, there's Stat 230, Stat 240 doesn't have a video yet, Data Science 300, Stat 121, 124 might be a fun overview of kind of earlier statistics. It's a little bit slow for you guys, but it's got some fun material. So okay, let's see here. And look at me go, 109 subscribers, not bad. You could be the 110th. Yeah, I'm not going to be YouTube famous. Yeah. I'm not going to be YouTube famous anytime soon. Pretty sure I've posted, where can I find out how many videos I've posted? Hey, 110, I watched it change. It's awesome. I've posted a lot of videos. I think there's over 100. No one's following me. That's okay. I like it because they let me post as many videos as I want. Okay, so I've only done it for week 1 because, like I said, there are a few things that I want to iron out the details for before I kind of give them to you. So I've only done week 1, but what I'll do is for each day, there will be kind of a summary of what we're going to do that day. So if you miss a day, then you know what you missed. And of course, kind of as we adjust the schedule, I will adjust this timeline so it's kind of more accurate. And so today we're just doing introductions, and we're going to make sure that you have R set up, which for some of you is probably no big deal at all. But if you haven't used R before, then we'll make sure that you're all set up and good to go. So I posted the outline, which we'll work through, and then we'll talk about that markdown test. It's not a test, it's like a testing situation. And we'll talk about that later. Okay. And here I've linked the video. It's one of my older videos. It's Lab 0 in the Stat Labs playlist, but it just goes through. Of course, it's an older version. It's from 2018. So things, are going to look a little bit different, but in general, if anything, it's probably easier now than it was back then. So you can check that out if you're trying to install R in RStudio. But let's go to the course outline. Oops, I need to grab it first. That'll help. Oops, sure. Okay. So, we talked about my contact information. Right. You're here in class, so you made it. You know when it is. I will say there are no labs in the first week of classes because we will not cover any material. So it's really hard to do a lab. So we're just gonna, and that's pretty typical that there are no labs in the first week anyways, so. No labs in the first week. And I have to apologize now. My handwriting is not very nice, but if you see a word that doesn't look like anything, let me know and I'll try to fix it. But hopefully we can you'll learn my handwriting and I'll try to get better, but hasn't worked for a long time. Okay, so no labs this week. And I had a note of that on the Moodle page as well. Let's see here. Right, so for Friday, no labs in the first week of classes. So we're not meeting tomorrow. Don't worry, there will be lots to do for next week. Okay. So the calendar description is really brief, and I guess it doesn't really apply. I'll kind of make changes to that as we go, but for now, I guess it's a good enough jumping off point. The reason that they decided to make some changes to this course is for transferability, right? And so it's going to be more of a mathematical statistics, and that just helps you in terms of being able to transfer to other institutions. And so it's a good change, but yeah, just need to figure it out. So the most important thing is, let's see here. I noticed that the bookstore has a different textbook than the one I was told to use. That's really confusing. So what I want to know / need to know is, has anyone bought the bookstore book? Okay. All right. That's good. Yes, no, yes, no. Oh no. No. No, yeah. Okay. If you have bought the bookstore textbook, then you can let me know, but it's looking like no one has. So that's good. I always used to, yeah, there are always people who are buying the textbook before class. I'd always go to class, make sure I like the class before I buy anything. People are so committed to the course that they do it. So anyways, if you have, let me know and we'll figure something out. But the one that we're supposed to be using is called Introduction to Mathematical Statistics, and it's by Hogg. And it looks like I have a copy here. It looks like this. Now, how can I? Copy. Okay. So it looks like that. note, the bookstore is selling a different textbook. Okay. Let me know if you have purchased it. Okay. I would say not very important, of course. So the edition, this is the 8th edition, probably not very important. It's more the concepts. I will be working from the 8th edition. I haven't seen the 7th edition. I don't have it, so I don't know what the differences are. But probably not that different. Things haven't really changed a lot. So I'll be working from this one. One thing that I will say is you might get away with not buying a textbook at all. And I don't want to say that and then you come back and say, hey, you said I didn't need a textbook. You might be able to get away with just using my notes. It's more, so the textbook would give you more information around those topics that might be useful, right? And so we can kind of play it by ear. If you know, if no one's bought the textbook yet, then I think we can kind of try it and see if we can get away with just using my notes. And then if you find that, oh, I need a little bit more context, then of course the textbook is where it is. But otherwise, my notes will basically just be the textbook summarized. So should be good enough. But yeah, so kind of a little bit optional, right? Usually what I find, especially the first time that I use a textbook, is that my notes are basically the textbook or what I want you to have out of the textbook. So it's pretty safe to just go with the notes. But, just for people who can't be here, you might not need the textbook. We'll see. I'd be interested to know, though, if anyone does decide to buy it for some reason, but it's nice to have a textbook. And I'm sure you can get the ebook. Pearson's pretty good about, so Pearson is the publisher, and of course they have all these ebook options and rental options and all that kind of fun stuff. Okay, so okay, that was the most important thing to me today, because until I had the textbook situation figured out, and it wasn't until kind of late that I realized that the bookstore had a different one. But okay, now we're good to go. That's great. In terms of our course evaluation, this is kind of the most important part of today, right? Figuring out how to get your grades. Let's see here. So your lab grade is going to be 15% of your overall marks. So there is a grade component to the labs, and it'll be 15% of your grade. It's not like chemistry or physics. I think both of those you have to pass the lab to pass the course. That's not the case here. You just have to try to get as much as you can out of the lab, of course, but it's only worth 15%, and that's it. So there are going to be assignments / quizzes. The reason I have assignments / quizzes is because there will be some problems where I want you to spend more time on it, have more resources available to you as you solve these problems, because they're going to be harder problems. Those would be assignments, right? Where you have longer to work on them, and you have, open resources, and, you can talk to me, you can talk to your classmates. Those would be assignments, right? In terms of other material where it's just kind of quick, multiple choice, short answer questions, and it's just testing your theoretical knowledge, I'll call those quizzes, because those would have a time limit. You have 30 minutes to do this quiz, and so those I'll call quizzes, but those grades will be in one lump. And it's just because of kind of the bumpy material. So some material will lend itself more to quizzes, and some material will lend itself more to assignments. And so I'm just kind of keeping it open. And it'll be, one of these, an assignment or a quiz, kind of once a week type of deal, right? Just to check in. We're going to have 2 tests. Okay. Of course, 30% makes 15% each, but I didn't feel like using up 2 lines to do it, so just 30% and 2 tests. If you miss a test for whatever reason, I'll transfer the weight of that test to the final exam. Okay, you'll have to talk to me, and we'll have to kind of figure out if that's the plan, but usually that's what I do. So there are 2 tests throughout the term, and they'll just kind of be checking in as we go. And then, of course, there will be a final exam where 35%, 35%, which is a little bit less than usual, right? Usually it's 40%, but it's still, quite a large chunk, and it will be cumulative and during the final exam time. I think it's December 8th to the 18th this year. So sometime in there. Okay. Tests are going to be during class times in the term. And so, of course, with me posting the videos and posting the notes, you do not have to come to class. I'll have class here regardless. And for a lot of people, it's kind of the best way to get through the material, because then you can ask questions as they come up. The downside is you can't watch it in double time because it's live, right? But so you don't have to come to class, but on those test dates, you will have to come to class. And we'll talk more about what I expect for tests closer to, but you will have to be here in Zoom, and you'll have to have, some sort of webcam on to show your workspace, and I'll watch you write it. And it will be open book. So any hard copy materials will be allowed. But like I said, we'll talk more about it closer to a test. Yeah. Okay, let's see here. So the learning outcomes do not make sense on the first day, but I think they'll be really fun to go back to towards the end of the term. And I like to use it as a review tool, right? To highlight all the things that you've learned. Often it doesn't feel like you've learned that much, or at least for me, when I was a student, I always felt like, oh, I don't know if I learned anything. And then I'd go back and read the learning outcomes. And then it's like, oh yeah, I did learn all this stuff. So that's pretty cool. So I saved that for the end of the term, but they're here if you ever want to review them. And my goal it's an ambitious goal, is to cover chapters 1 through 9 in the textbook. Now, you'll see I've even included chapter 11, just in case. Just in case. Right. And possibly chapter 11. Okay. We start off with probability and distributions. Now, the hard part about doing that is a lot of people don't like probability, including myself. This stuff, it's okay, but right, if you've had stat 230, you know, P of A, P of B, P of A and B, P of A given B, that kind of thing, right? So that's where we start. And then we're going to move through and just kind of talk about different distributions, which will make more sense when we get there. And then inference, hypothesis testing, confidence intervals. And then we're just going to work through some more kind of mathematical statistics problems. Okay. So chapter 11 is on Bayesian statistics, which is its own field. And so that's why, you know, when they decided what we were going to cover, they kind of said, oh, well, ideally, you know, introduce them to Bayesian statistics. But it's not a must-have, so that's why it's time permitting, it's at the end here. Okay, but it is cool. It is its own field. Just kind of, there are two ways of doing statistics now because we have these crazy computers, and so the cool kids use Bayesian statistics. I'm a frequentist, which is the other side, old school. Oh well. So let's see here. Department policies. Let me just delete this. Are pretty basic, and some of them don't even apply to an online course. Due at the start of class? No, they're not. I usually make things due at midnight, and I'll often, or I try to, as much as I can, I try to give you at least a week to work on things. So from the day that we finish a concept, I'll assign you an assignment, for example, and then you'll have a week to do it, right? So from the time that I hand something out or post something, you'll have a week to finish it, okay? So you'll always have that week. Sometimes that week is not enough time, right? Because you're so busy, it's the middle of term and you've got other courses, and sometimes it's lots of time. So you just kind of need to be prepared for that. Okay? And it'll be, you know, weekly, roughly. So like I said, we don't give makeup exams, but if you do miss a test, then we'll look at transferring the weight to the final exam. This next one is also not really true for us, right? Because the class is available after class, so you don't have to come. It's completely up to you, right? I really don't. Well, it's nice to have people here, but it doesn't matter to me if you come to class or if you watch the videos and read the notes, as long as you're staying on top of the material, however you want to do that, that's good. So it really doesn't matter to me. You're all adults. You can make those decisions on your own, and I'm not gonna be upset if you don't come. I'll be upset if you don't come and you don't stay on top of the material. Ooh. One thing that I do want to highlight here, and even though I'm highlighting it, it's not as bad as it looks. Okay, so just as a department policy, you have to get at least 45% on the final to be able to pass the course. So even though the final is only worth what, 35% of your grade, Oh, it's catching up here, sorry. 35% of your grade, you still have to write it and you still have to get at least 45% on it in order to be able to pass. So that's just to make sure that you're able to basically just write the final and have all that cumulative information produced, okay? I will say this, people freak out about this criteria closer to the final exams. It's never a problem, right? It's basically like you have to pass the final to pass the course. It's pretty reasonable and it's never a problem, okay? Of course, if you don't reach 45, then the maximum grade that you could get is 49%. I think this next point is pretty funny because we're saying that you're allowed, so this is of course for in-person classes, you're allowed a non-programmable, non-graphing scientific calculator, but then at the same time, we're going to use R, which is the super graphing calculator. And so it's just a hilarious contradiction, but that's okay. You can ignore the calculator one. You just are not allowed to use your cell phone, right? Because it's hard to monitor. Okay, so no cell phones. Okay. Okay. But if you're like me, well, I have a lot of calculators laying around, but I love my graphing calculator and you are allowed to use it. So I'll do this. No cell phone calculators, that's it. If you have one and you like it, why not? Yeah. We won't need it too much. A lot of the little calculations we'll be doing will be just kind of theoretical, and bigger calculations that we're doing will be in R. So it's not going to be a big problem. So I will give you a formula sheet, but like I said, the tests will be open book, right? So anything hard copy. So as we move through the course, you can start to develop kind of quick resources for yourself so that they're available during a quiz or a test, right? And so it says that it's going to be provided, and I might give you a rough outline of something that's useful, but you can kind of develop as much material as you want. Okay. And then of course the final exam will be cumulative, which we've already established. Okay. Important dates. Let's do this. I'll add a page here. Now, just from the fact that Stat 230 is a prereq, and you know, a lot of you are in the data science program, this is not your first term of school, right? But I do want to point it out because it is really important. First of all our days off, right? And so here's a list of all the important dates for this term. And at least when I was a student, it was like the first thing I did. I got my planner and then I would write in all the days off that we had. It's very important. Keep track of, right? Yeah, so we've got a couple of days off coming up. I don't remember if they affect us. Some of them do, but kind of most important right now is next Friday is the last day to drop a course without a W. It's the last day to switch a course. It's the last day to make any changes. After that, you're in my class and you're kind of stuck here, right? And so time to make a decision. right? And so, but all that has to happen before next Friday. So you got some time still, but not a lot. I usually don't, I know it's bad, but I don't really look at class lists because they change so much until then. And then after that, I'll kind of figure out class lists and stuff like that. But we've got our new holiday, September 30th, which is a Thursday. So that's one that affects us, right? And then October 11th is Thanksgiving. So no school on Thanksgiving. We don't have a class on Mondays, but maybe your other classes, it's important. Here's the most important one. The last day to withdraw without academic penalty is October 29th. That's a long ways away, right? And so you'll have lots of time, but what's important about that day is as long as you withdraw before then, if you're feeling like you're not going to pass, you should withdraw before then, just because that'll get you a W on your transcript. Whereas if you withdraw after, you just get a fail. And so a W does not affect your GPA, right? Your GPA stays good. Whereas an F would bring down your GPA by quite a bit, right? And so that's just a time to keep in mind, okay? I know you're all good students and you're all ready to go, but everyone has a bad term at some point, okay? So I'm just saying this in case that's you this term, then I'm sorry, but it's always someone, okay? Or multiple people usually. And so that's just a date to keep in mind. And then we have, hey, another Thursday off. Should I be excited about that? Yeah, I like days off too. So Thursday, Remembrance Day, and then also the Friday after that. Okay, so we've got an extra long weekend there, so that'll be nice. And then our last day of classes is December 6th. And then, of course, our final exams go from potentially December 8th to December 18th. Yeah. Okay. I'll put all these here, but I'll bring the Success Center up. It doesn't really help you guys, unfortunately, but you might be able to find someone who helps you in there, but you might be better off just coming to me for help. But in general, for your other classes, the Success Center is just free tutoring. So they've been paid already, so don't worry about that. Right, they're tutors that are paid to be there, and you can access the Success Center. They always change their name. It's the Learning Center, it's the Success Center. I've got the link here in the course outline. And so if there are other courses that you're working on, this one, I don't think there's anyone really to do this level, but that's okay. You can come to me. And then maybe you can be the tutor when you're done. Cha-ching, you can get paid. That might be good. Right, and so that's free tutoring that you can make use of, so that's good. Yeah, fun, right? I'll even recommend you for the job. Any one of you. Well, we'll see how the term goes. Job on the line. All right. So since I know this is not your first term of school, the final exam schedule is really strict, right? There are very, very few instances where you can write an out of time final exam, but it has to be approved by the dean's office, and it's really hard to do. Well, if you do it for love, you said it. your love of statistics. Isn't that enough? I don't know how much it pays. My guess would be probably 15 an hour, probably. Yeah, so you'll have to study hard and then apply to be a tutor. Or if you're good at calculus or other things, I know they're hiring for that. So anyways, if you want me to put you in touch, I can do it. Okay. Oh yeah, so it's not your first rodeo, and so nope, you've committed now. So you have to work there, sorry. Yeah, it's too late. Oh yeah, so make sure that you wait until the final exam schedule is posted before you book your flights and whatever fun stuff you have going on for December, right? And so because just because you booked a flight does not mean that you can switch your final exam date. Now, what's nice is, of course, our final exam is online. So it shouldn't really be a problem this term, right? But just keep that in mind. Okay. Academic integrity is basically don't cheat, right? If you're copying someone else's work, that's cheating and that's really bad. And I have to report you to the dean's office. And that's no fun. It's not fun for me. It's definitely not fun for you. So don't do it. It's bad. So as long as you're making sure that everything that you give to me comes from your own thinking, then you're safe, right? If you've arrived at all these things on your own using knowledge that you've learned, and that's what I find is difficult about kind of knowing what's right and what's wrong. And if you're ever kind of struggling with that, you know, I always used to have a hard time with, well, I learned this from a textbook, right? And so, and I, you know, I'm referencing the textbook, but I'm still using it. It's my knowledge. Then that's fine. That's okay. And if there's ever a time where you're not sure if, you know, what would be appropriate, then just ask me. There's no harm in asking at all. Okay. So, because I know it can be kind of tricky, right? But just make sure that everything that you give me should be your own work, then you're safe, right? Kind of your own musings. All right. And then for the student conduct policies and my conduct, basically just be nice. Be nice to each other. Be nice to me. I'll try to be nice to you. And then we'll be fine. Okay. And I think that's the end of, oh yeah, no, these are really good too. All right. So there is advising and counseling available. So those are non-academic, right? But they're really good resources. So the accessibility services, if you're finding, you know, that you need extra resources for class, or if you, usually it's if you need more time for tests, then they have their own kind of structure that they deal with, and they'll be able to tell you if you qualify or not. Usually there has to be a reason, but if you're finding that you're constantly running out of time on exams and things like that, then you can talk to accessibility services to see if there's anything that they can do for you, right? The time component is usually the reason people are working with them, okay? But it's a really good resource, and if that's what you're finding, then check it out. There's also counseling services, also free, of course. And so these can be, you know, personal counseling, career counseling, study skills, just kind of any sort of counseling. they want to provide those services to you. And I'm sure they're available online as well as in person now. Okay, that's the end of our course outline. Everyone knows first day is course outline day, right? Gotta walk through it. Okay, so what I want you to do is just to make sure that we're all starting on the same page with setting up R in RStudio. And if you've used R in RStudio before, this is going to be a breeze. And if you haven't, hopefully it's not that bad. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to, I set the due date for next Tuesday at midnight. So you'll have lots of time to get it set up. So you don't have to do it now. In fact, installing R in RStudio takes a little bit of time. And so I'm not expecting you to have done that now. But what I posted on Moodle here, this link to the old but useful video of how to install R in RStudio. I don't know if it's useful. It's old though. Okay. So you can kind of get R in RStudio installed, and I've got the instructions here. Oops, forgot I don't have a pointer on the web page, but maybe I can do this. Okay. Yes. I have to remember how to do all the shortcut things. Crop. Okay. So what I want you to do for next day, and read chapter 1. Maybe I should clean that up a little bit. Okay. You don't have to read all of chapter 1 because we won't make it all the way through, but I'm trying to get through chapter 1 next week. So start reading ahead. You might need to brush up on some things. And what I can do, I think I'm allowed to share one chapter, right? What I'll do is I'll post just chapter 1 and then just don't tell on me. Okay. Give me some time, figure stuff out. How about that? Yeah, just don't tell on me. No, I think it's 10% of the book. It might even be 20% of the book that I'm allowed to share. But anyways, so what I want you to do is I want you to download RStudio. Now, R is a programming language that we'll be using, but RStudio just makes it easier to use, right? And so R is the brain that we download first, but then how we're going to access it is through RStudio. And then once you're in RStudio, and I'm going to show you how to do it on my screen, but what I want to do is just, if you're comfortable with what I'm saying here, you'll be free to go after this. But if you're not, if this stuff makes no sense to you, then I'll show you what I mean. Okay. So once you have R and RStudio in that order, you're going to create a new markdown document. So an RMD file. You're going to change the title. So give it a title. I usually do markdown tests just because we're kind of just testing to make sure everything is working. your name as the author, and you're going to set it to produce an HTML file, right? So for now, we're just going to produce HTML. There's also the option of producing a PDF, but it requires another download. So I'm putting that off for a little bit. And it can also do Word files. It assumes that you have Word on your computer, but you could play around with that if you wanted to. But I want an HTML file. You're going to save the file because otherwise you don't know where it's going to end up. And so wherever you save it, just make sure that you're able to easily find it. Okay. Then you're going to hit knit. And so it'll have default text in there, and then you're going to hit knit, and it's going to knit it all together and give you that default knitted HTML document. Okay. And so once the code is finished running, right, it's going to produce this HTML document, and it's going to have the same name as the file that you saved, right? So not the title, but the file. Then what I want you to do is I want you to upload the HTML, so the .html file you generated. I just want to see it here, and I'm going to count it as one assignment, the easiest assignment for sure of this term, okay? And so only .html files will be accepted, okay? So if you're comfortable with doing that on your own, then you are free to go, and I'll post chapter 1. So I will post on Moodle. Okay, I'll post chapter 1 so you can start reading it. And then we'll start chapter 1 next week. What else? What else? Oh yeah, I'll highlight that there are no labs this week, okay, because we haven't done anything. It's hard. I guess we could have installed R, but we're doing it now, so oh well. Yeah, so if you feel comfortable doing this on your own, then you are free to go, and I'll see you next week. Otherwise, I'm going to switch the screen that I'm sharing to another one. And let me know if you have any questions. I'm keeping my eye on the chat, but it's pretty calm. But if you do have any questions, let me know. All right. I'm gonna switch. Hey. Okay, switch that. Okay. Share my screen. All of it. Hello?
Hello? Yeah.
Hello? Oh, I'll stop sharing because I can't see anyone.
Okay, so yeah, the camera isn't on, so that's fine.
Oh, hey, that's fine. Okay, good. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. So it's with respect to like the theory part of the course, and how does it like cope up with the practical applications? Because I took the STAT 230, and I had the same question with the previous course, and like for example, we learned chi-square, for example. Now I can do the chi-square analysis, but then I'm not sure if I'm good enough to implement that in a real world scenario and understanding the use case for it. So how much is this course how much skills am I gonna get from this course, which can be applied in actual real world scenarios as compared to theoretical basis?
Yeah, so that's the one thing that I don't really like about how they changed the course. I'm gonna try to make it as applied as I can. But what they have asked, and I say they, but the data science team, they've asked that it's more of a mathematical statistics course. So it will be pretty heavy in theory. But like I said, just because they want you to be kind of stronger in learning theory and just kind of, because of course, everything we do is based in theory. But so they just were hoping to get kind of stronger math skills. And so, but then I'm on the other side and I'm feeling like, no, they need more applied skills. You know, when do you do these things? When should you be doing that? So I'm going to try to push that as much as I can. But then there are, you know, a lot of theoretical things that we need to cover. So so I totally understand your question, and it is going to be a lot of theory.
Okay. So yeah, I don't have any issues with theory. That's fine. I just wanted to get that out of the way. And the second thing is with respect to using R, as in how much are we like, what's the use case of R for this course? I might have missed this during the starting part of the lecture if you might have covered it because I joined in late. But yeah, I'm curious about using R for stats.
Oh yeah, so R is just kind of industry standard for statistics, definitely. It's a statistical programming language, and yeah, so most firms are going to be using R if they're doing statistics. For things like big data, we should be using Python, but just you can use Python through R. So R is kind of like, if you know R, you can go into all the other languages. And so it's definitely one of the hardest languages to learn and use. But once you have it, then you can kind of go and use any other language and it's going to feel a lot easier. So that's why we use R, and also just because it's industry standard.
So I agree on that part because I did take the data science courses for the first semester. Now, but
Nice.
it's with respect to this course, like how much are we gonna use R in this particular course? What's the best case scenario?
I'm going to try to use it as much as we can, but definitely in the labs, you know, we have labs once a week. And so every week I'll introduce, you know, lab material that's going to support what we learned that week in R.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. What was I going to do? Yeah, any other questions before I show you how to do this markdown? Trying to shuffle things around here so I can see. Okay. So I've got an older version. I need to update my R and RStudio versions. Mine's from 2019, but they usually have pretty cute names. Dark and Stormy Night. I think I looked, what was the newest one they released? Can't remember what the name was, but it was pretty cute. So anyways, that's where you can see what version you're running, among other ways. But so what you're going to do is once you have R and RStudio downloaded, it should open up like this. So this here. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to open up a new R Markdown file. So there are a lot of different file types that we could work with. And like I said, you know, you can work with Python, you can work with SQL, you can work with Stan, you can work C++, basically all the core languages you can incorporate. LaTeX is a typesetting language that I use a lot. And so you can basically run any language through here, but we're going to use R Markdown. Okay, it's probably the easiest one. And it comes up with this pop-up where we're going to choose a document. I'm going to change the title. I'm going to call it Markdown Test by me. Okay, and here it gives you the option of which output format you want. We want the HTML output format. You can do PDF, but you need LaTeX or a Word document, right, which you could play around with. But once you've given it a name and the author, you're okay to hit OK. So if you've never seen this before, it looks really scary. If you have seen it before, it'll just look normal, right? And so that's where we'll all get to eventually. But so it's got the title that I gave it. It's got the author. You can change that here. You're not committed to what you enter in the beginning. It's just a jumping off point. So all I want is just this default document, okay? But what I want you to do is it starts off being called Untitled 1, right? And so what we have to do is we have to save it. And what you want to do is you want to save it somewhere where you know where to find it. So instead of calling it Untitled, I'm going to call it Markdown Test. One thing that's really important is, as far as I know, it still doesn't like spaces in the names. So it doesn't like spaces. I'm pretty sure it doesn't like periods. I tend to use underscores or camel type, right? Where you capitalize the first letter and you just smush them all together, camel type. Yeah. I'm going to put it on my desktop and save. So hopefully you can see my desktop here where it saved this RMD file. So that's an R markdown file. Okay. So now what I can do is I'm going to knit this document. So there's a little knit, a ball of yarn with some knitting needles, I guess. And so you're going to hit that button. And what happens is it starts processing down here, right? As long as it has this stop button, it's still processing, so you'll need to let it run. And sometimes it can take some time, but it's going to come up with this nice default document. You'll also see that over here on my desktop, I have the same name, right? Markdown Test, but it's .html, right? And so I don't know, it's cutting it off, but anyways, this is the file that I want you to upload to Moodle, right? So you don't have to make any changes. You can play around with the changes and there's lots of things that you can do. But for now, I just want to make sure that everyone's up and running and just submit this HTML file. So it's basically a little website. In fact, when I open it here, or maybe I won't do that yet here. When I click it to open it, it'll just open as a little website, right? So pretty cool. Good. I'll stop this sharing here. All right. So that's all I wanted to cover for today. But like I said, if this is your first time using R, then let's get you set up and you can kind of stick around if you want my help. But otherwise, if you're all good, then you're free to go and I'll see you on Tuesday and I'll stop the recording.